a lot of things happened in season 12. I mean, we had our new stop motion animation. Episode 3 was our brosectomies.
Oh, wow.
We released our Book of Mythicality in episode 37 and announced a tour for that. Episode 44 was our first Leaving Things In, Coke. Episode 52 was our last episode before we switched over to GMM 22 in the middle of the season.
Wow, so there was so much stuff happening at this point. I'm trying to like think beyond just what was, there's so much happening with Good Mythical Morning.
Yeah.
It was, now.
I mean, just getting vasectomies would have been enough for that fall.
Now, one thing I will say, by season 12, which was what year?
2017.
So 2017, like if you go in the back end and you look at the engagement and the views and all that stuff. So again, there was this sort of incredible time of like 2014, 2015, 2016, like this 3-year period in which there was this incredible amount of views and incredible amount of audience growth, like you said, like breaking 10 million subscribers. 2017 sort of represented a little bit of a things were beginning to slow down. Now this wasn't—
Well, I would say level out.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the growth was slowing down. Like this explosive growth was slowing down. And then if you just look at the numbers, what you won't see is you won't see an episode that has 12, 15, 18, 20 million views like some of those ones that had broken out during that time. Now again, that's not a function of a strategy change on our part. It's just a function of the change of audience taste and also the YouTube platform. So we're kind of like, okay, this is maybe the new normal for where this thing is shaking out. In the meantime, doing all this other stuff like you mentioned, the book, the tour, the show, and then YouTube knocks on our door and says, hey, they actually said, do you want to do a Good Mythical night or Good Mythical evening, like a daily nightly show in addition to your daily show? We were like, do you? I mean, there's only 2 of us. Yeah. We have a lot of help, but there's still only these 2 guys. That turned into, well, let's apply those changes to Good Mythical Morning itself, and hence GMM 22. We call it 22 because it was, a half hour of television is actually just 22 minutes of content.
So we were trying to make 4 videos that totaled up to roughly 22 minutes of content, because
there was a little bit of a potential hope, and actually this was discussed, would maybe that show in its entirety end up on linear television at some point? Like there was a discussion about that. I mean, it was crazy that was a discussion, but that was a discussion at some point.
Most of the discussions were about click the green border.
Yeah. We're not gonna talk negatively about GMM 22. We've done enough of that.
I'll present the positive sides of it. This was the first, like, we accelerated like how big our team was, how big our set was. There was an injection of creativity where we had to make all these different videos. We had to make 4 videos a day instead of 1. So we were willing to try things and say, okay, 1 of these or 2 of these segments are gonna be the things you expect and they're gonna perform well, like episode 59, freezing our bodies. This is gonna work. We're gonna go to a cryogenic therapy place. Then we're gonna come back to the set and do Big Mac versus Whopper, and that's gonna perform really well. And then we're gonna do this silly invention thing where we wear sauna pants, which we just made. And then we're gonna do this very quick thing called censored kissing game, which the writers really had to push the writers to come up with comedy bits that then we could play fun games or quick improv type things. So we were reapplying our efforts and lessons from way back with This Is the Mythical Show, which was a half hour, and saying, well, we're not gonna make a 30-minute video, we're gonna make each of these internet videos, and then there's room for experimentation. And because of that, we did learn a lot, but we had to do things like, we have to have a teleprompter.
This was the beginning of that.
This is when we started having a teleprompter instead of like trying to commit stuff to memory for just a few seconds and then say it in twice as much time as it needs to take, and with a lot more prep than we have time to give to it.
And to clarify, okay, so when we talk about what's scripted and what's not scripted on Good Mythical Morning. So for a very, very long time, maybe not from the very beginning, but definitely their early seasons, what we had scripted was, okay, at the beginning of this thing, when the camera turns on and we say Good Mythical Morning, the things that we're going to say right at the top are essentially scripted. It started loose and it was like, okay, I've got a little thing I'm gonna say, and then you're like, here's how I'm gonna react to it. Then it slowly evolved to a place where it was, I think, literally written down, and we would look at it and be like, okay, I think I can say that. Again, this is just the intro, just like the first minute or so of the show. To kind of, because we wanted to quickly and efficiently get into the good stuff and set it up in the right way, orient people, maybe there were rules or whatever. So that was the existing system. And then, but what would happen sometimes is we would have this sheet of paper and we'd be trying to get it, and we'd go through 2, 3, 4 takes sometimes, just getting the takeoff of the show done.
Which is very frustrating.
And it's taking a bunch of time. And I think all along, I can't remember who it was, if it was Stevie or whoever it was like, what about a teleprompter? We were very anti-teleprompter, because if you know what it looks like when somebody's reading a teleprompter, you know what it looks like when somebody's reading a teleprompter, right?
Yeah.
And then that makes the show feel less authentic.
And plus, we were self-conscious about it, but we basically knew we had to figure it out. We had to utilize it for the show openings. And so it was just one of those things that made GMM 22 feel off at the beginning. It wasn't just about the fact that it was the wrong color and that we were using different cameras. There was a lot of transitions that shouldn't have impacted the audience experience that did, because it was there were so many things that we were changing in our experience behind the scenes. So like using a teleprompter and the specifics of how we were using it. But that ended up being a good thing. It's like forcing us to figure out what are our terms for using this tool.
We learned when not to use it, because I think we overdid it in certain times. Yeah. And we also got better at, if you want to look and you want to follow our eyes and get really specific, you probably, if you watch the show enough, you know when it's happening. But we got better at it, so somebody who's coming into the show for the first time doesn't feel like I'm walking into this stiff newscaster situation.
We also had like writers writing more comedy bits that like we were figuring out, is this for us? Do we enjoy this? Are we good at it? Can we take someone else's joke and say it as our own? Like, there was a lot of, or work within an improv bit where it's like, we're gonna be sucking helium and saying, and then ranting about things that are, again, on a teleprompter. And a lot of things didn't work, but it was great to have to force ourselves to try these things and at least have these segments that were like our bread and butter and that we knew were gonna work. We also had guests come in. We had a dedicated effort to book guests, like through traditional means, like that.
A booking agent.
That's how you get Weird Al Yankovic to come on the show. That's how you get in touch with Jack Black to come on and sing Silent Night for episode 85. We also, at the end of that year, episode 84, we made the Christmas Booty music video.
Oh, so we decided to re-engage there.
And all we had done was announce Buddy System Season 2. None of it came out until Season 13, January of 2018. We reduced our number of videos from 4 to 3 per episode, but we were continuing to do the segmented GMM 22. At the end of 2017, it was during this season that we were releasing Buddy System Season 2. It was all happening at the same time.
Yeah, it's also when I started going to therapy.
Yeah, that was freaking crazy.
Well,
man.
there's a couple of other elements too, that this is not the kind of thing that we typically think about or talk about, but I'm sure that if we were to talk to some of the folks who work more on the production side of GMM, a lot of the things that we do now in terms of the way thumbnails are created, the way that graphics are created, the way the editing workflow, the audio workflow.
Yeah.
all this back end stuff that enables the show to happen every single day, those efficiencies were developed during GMM 22. That's not something that we often think about, but anything that worked, we kept. What didn't work, which namely was doing 3 or 4 or 5 videos every single day,
right,
didn't work on a number of levels. But there's
fact
so
that,
many things that we took forward.
Yeah, we learned how to work with guests. And so then, well, I won't get ahead of myself because that's the second half of GMM 22 in January 2018. That's episode 12 was when we did Fancy Fast Food, Big Mac. So it's like, that is a staple of the Mythical Kitchen channel now. Mm-hmm. We did our first Munch Madness tournament, which we ultimately, so that was
that was pretty pivotal.
Yeah.
Was it a multi-day thing?
Oh yeah. And then episode 116, Will It Churro, was the last GMM 22. But then the things we continued from there were having guests on the show, being able to use a teleprompter for the stuff that we just needed to get through, like how a game works.
Right.
And the intros. So like you said, there was a lot of efficiencies that, like when we said, okay, in season 14, we're going back to 1 video a day and then Good Mythical more, and that's it.
We now
had this
way.
Capability. We were like, if we can make 3 or 4 times this amount of content in an episode, then we can shoot things more efficiently. We can start shooting more episodes in a day. Well, we can have more time to work on other things and still keep Good Mythical Morning at the caliber it needs to be at.
Because one of the things that was happening with the book and the tour and buddy system, which represented things that we really want to do, they become more difficult to enjoy when you just can't really devote time to them, right? And then everything begins to feel a little bit like a burden, like, okay, GMM, when you want to work on this, GMM feels like, oh, that feels like a burden, or it's like when you've got GMM scheduled to shoot and I need to work on this book, that begins to feel like a burden.
Yeah.
We knew that wasn't sustainable. We also knew the thing that we didn't want to do was stop doing anything. Right. That's the one thing that we've never really considered is stopping doing anything.
Right.
It's just finding a more efficient way to do it. But the beautiful thing about this is that it solved a lot of problems for us, but then nobody, I'm sure there's somebody out there who's like, I was disappointed when you guys went back to 1 episode a day. I know that group of people exists, and you know what? I love you for that. But I think the vast majority of people were happy to get their good old traditional GMM back, but we were able to be like, hey, we can actually write this thing or do this thing. Oh no, we didn't do a Buddy System season 3 and we probably never will, but hey, we're trying to do other things. And we wouldn't be able to do those if we hadn't transitioned back.